Um, you're in Baltimore, right, Lexi?
Correct. No, sir. Mm-hmm.
All right.
Hello.
Hello, welcome, welcome.
Hey, that's a familiar voice. Oh no, John. Yeah,
it's there was Spider
Sure
Man.
does.
cool. There we go.
Hey
Awesome.
guys, how's it going?
It's going great. Thank you so much for being here,
Of
taking time,
course.
and um, yeah, I just
Hey Lexi.
What up? How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Jesse, how's your week?
um busy. You know, I have a 7 month old, our first son child,
Nice.
and
First one? Oh wow.
there's that, and then there's, I've got a gig coming up Saturday night, an out of town gig,
Yeah.
that I'm playing at. So I've been, um, prior to this meeting, I was preparing my set, updating some music, and then
Good.
also, after this meeting, I'll be programming a new artist into our music database, where we store the artists we represent at our
Good.
sync agency. So I'll be like programming and tagging that, her songs and the matching instrumental, um, into the system. So a day of time management and productivity.
I hear you.
Yeah,
To finish out your week for sure. That's awesome.
yeah, absolutely. Um, yeah, yeah. Um,
Cool.
So we just wanted to, we'll get started here in just a second.
Yeah.
Why don't you, uh, for everyone who doesn't know, you do a lot. Your companies, and your music supervision company, and my understanding is you represent artists, and then there's hacking music, which really kind of, I thought was interesting, and I'd like to know more about that. But why don't you just kind of, what is the sync center, hacking music, and Jetpack Artist Ventures is kind of my starting point.
Yeah.
um,
Yeah. Jetpack Artist Ventures is kind of an umbrella company, and we have different lines of business. The Sync Center is one of our lines of business where we handle supervision and music management for filmmakers and advertisers. Then we have Jetpack Label Group, which is our recording unit, independent label. And then Hacking Music is our training unit. So over the years, we've collected a lot of habits, force multipliers, frameworks, ways of thinking that really help artists think better and execute better. So what we've done is I've always collected these things over the years. I had a big binder 4 years ago, and I was like, I wonder if it would be interesting if we kind of put this together in a way that was more digestible. And that became Hacking Music, and we launched it at Harvard 4 years ago, and we train artists in how to be better artists. And that means building a platform under your content in a way that supports it and strengthens it and sells your music, not just writing another song to write another song, but you have to build a back end and a business around it to create a healthy company. So yeah, those are our lines of business under Jetpack.
okay, okay.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about, um, I guess, your kind of philosophy for how you do business? Maybe, a little bit of, your attitude, your approach. Maybe if there's a mission, or how you envision, how you operate, and how, maybe you do things a little differently, or kind of your ethos, your work ethos.
Yeah. If you back up, Jesse, and you look at some of the greats, the people that really created a lot of stuff
Hmm.
and monetized that stuff, um, success leaves crumbs. Like there's there's a film director called Dino De Laurentiis, and somehow he produced 500 films in his lifetime, which is insane. That's a lot of films. You have authors like Cotton Mather, who wrote 400 works. That's a lot of books. You have Frank Zappa, who released 2% of the music that he wrote and produced. So 98% of Zappa's music is unreleased. So I think there's a way of thinking that really flicks the switch for artists and entrepreneurs and helps them really shift into another gear. I mean, if these people did it, then obviously the world's different now, but there's the way they worked, the way they thought strategically, the way they executed, how they did their business, um, is somewhat repeatable. There's things we can learn from them. So that's a big part of how we work. Our mission is to replace the great artists we've lost in the past with the next generation of healthier artists. Whitney Houston, Michael Jackson, Prince, Waylon Jennings. We've lost a lot of great artists. And the argument can be made, and we're making that argument, is that we need to do a better job of setting the next generation of artists up for success. So that's a little bit of our work ethic and a lot of what drives it. We're here to see right brain people succeed in a left brain world. That's why we get up in the morning.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, and that kind of filters into all our lines of business. Hacking music, that's a huge part of it. Jetpack Label Group, the Sync Center. I mean, that's in our fiber and in our DNA.
Mm-hmm.
It shows up in everything we do.
Yeah.
There's nothing worse than seeing an artist implode on the runway. Somebody who's got the talent, the ability, but just can't get out of the gate. I mean, we're living in the future, literally, and there's more tools available. But, it's harder. Like back in the day when I started in the 90s, they would have what's called development deals, which are like these 6-month deals, mini deals, to kind of try you out, test you out. And so I was fortunate to do a number of those at a record label and a Sony Music Publishing. And, it was a great way to learn because you're doing things in a deal structure. And, the guy mentored me, his name's Randy Cox. He was a publisher at Sony, and he gave me a lot of rope, probably more than he should have. He'd allow me to write the song, he'd allow me to produce the song, hire the players and turn in the song at the end of the week or two. And that was a great way to learn production. Now all those development deals are largely gone. Labels don't do that anymore. Publishers expect you to be firing on all cylinders, not just show a little kernel of something. So that puts artists in a tricky place. There's really none of those development deals happening. And kind of compounded on that, you have all the noise, you have all the 70,000 songs released a day, and then you have these, guru type people who want you, it's really marketing in disguise there. So there's really it's a hard place for artists to be. It's somebody who has good artist DNA, has the ability. It's hard for them to get get out of the gate.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's why we do what we do. We want to see artists win, and it's kind of our job to help them succeed.
I think that is very evident with
Yeah.
The work you're doing, the way your website is set up, but really I like your online presence, like with what Lexi is doing and what you all are doing on like Instagram
That's
and
all. That's all, Lexi.
um,
We.
I there's no way to know. You assume it's a huge
Yeah.
team effort, and
Yeah.
it's hard to really know who's doing what in the background. But
Yeah.
um, as we're a new group and we're a small boutique consultancy, but we're
Yeah.
one of the bigger independent music licensing agencies on that side, and it's just nice because we've been, my business partner Cameron isn't here right now, but he runs kind of the artist consultancy side when it comes to mission, vision, and values, and branding, and your
Yeah.
social presence, and just what I've learned just from working with him um,
Yeah.
is has been well. When I see what Lexi's doing, it's like I'm that much more grateful for the work that goes into that, I guess you might say,
Yeah.
because it's a whole you can spend a full-time job obviously on social presence and marketing and that kind of thing. You know, that type of tutorial video and
Yeah.
promoting engagement. I mean, that's
Yeah.
everything. Um, you could.
Yeah. And that, I think you're exactly right, Jesse. And we get people, a couple filmmakers a week just calling, asking for help. Hey, I'm creating a advertising spot, or I'm working on a film. I don't want to break the law. How can I not break the law and use music legally and do the right thing? So that for months a friend of mine at BMI sends all their sync and supervision our way, and that's both terrifying and great at the same time, because a lot of people think music should be free, and I'm just going to pay 30 cents for a Mariah Carey song, and I'm legal. So it's most of the people understand that music is not expensive, but there needs to be a budget for your film, and those are the people we can help. We say that we help you get the music you want within the budget you have, maybe even under budget.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of, as you know, there's just more and more music content being made, films, branded content on YouTube, Roku, Hulu, blah 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 blah. Name your streaming platform, and that was kind of the impetus for the Sync Center, was to help filmmakers manage the music process for their film. So yeah, I mean, it's a fun problem to help people solve, if that makes sense.
And there's a huge demand, and it's not a market that's going anywhere. In fact, it just keeps getting bigger and bigger.
Yeah.
You go back 15 years maybe in music licensing, and it's a whole different world.
Yeah. I mean, we started as a production company where we would make a new record every 3 months. We'd write the record, produce the record, mix the record. And this was back in the 90s, and we first started getting into it around the Dawson's Creek era. And this was back in the MySpace days. And we were like, we just finished a record, and the music supervisor, John McCullough is his name. He's like, hey, I'm doing the music for Dawson's Creek. Heard this song on your MySpace page. I would love to pay you $2,000 for it. I think it was small license. But it was like, wow, that's great. You mean this song sitting on a hard drive over here in our studio we can monetize it again? That was a neat thing to see. So we kind of backed up into the Sync Center because we were just music production, make, right?
Mm-hmm.
And as we started listening to the pain point of the customers, the filmmakers and ad agencies, they were like, man, we need somebody who knows this space, who can keep our butts from getting sued. If you're Microsoft, you don't want to be in a position where you didn't pay for your music, because that will be a $3 million mistake that you're going to have to pay for. So, we help people like Microsoft, Pizza Hut, Showtime, DuPont, Remax, Toyota, brands like that, on down to first-time filmmakers making their first film.
Mm-hmm. Lots of there's a lot of risk and liability there. I mean, it's something that we approach as a group. I kind of drive home that point that an uncleared sample can cost jobs and lawsuits, and which is why music professionals are so hesitant to maybe directly work with independent artists, as opposed to maybe a sync agent or someone like that. I know that can hold true, is that there's more risk. There's generally, it takes longer to vet that artist if they're not already vetted with like an agency. But
right, no, you're absolutely right. And you want to work with people who have done this 1,000 times before.
Yeah.
You don't want to work with people who are thinking about starting, doing it. It's like you want to know that people have a history and they've learned from their mistakes in the last decade, not this decade.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's something I like to bring up often. I think it's worth covering. Just that, this is why, you want to be as close to perfect on your grammar and your sentence structure. And if it's that first email, like it needs to be really good, because there's a lot already stacked against you, just as someone who's approaching cold. And so, wanted to just talk about that for a moment with you, and kind of your where
Anything
you're
you want to talk about?
What's that?
Anything you want to talk about?
Kind of I'd love to kind of talk about relationship building. That was something you mentioned the last time we talked, and I'd love to kind of get your take on the value of building them, and maybe some of the strategy, or why it's so important to be authentic about how you do that. But yeah, you seem passionate about the topic, and I wanted to bring that up.
Yeah. No, I think it's a big deal that often kind of gets. It's not a sexy thing. It's not a relationship. What is that? That's boring. But it's so important. I mean, if I had to pick one thing, it would be that. Being able to build relationships, because everything else you can learn. Lexi and I have been working on stuff, and it's like you don't have to know everything. You just have to get good at knowing what to learn, and then go learn that over the next 24 hours. There's a lot of, I don't know if I'd call it anti-learning, but I'm a little bit anti-learning, because people put, if there's learning and doing, most people are like, oh, I'm going to learn everything first before I go do something. And I'm kind of the opposite. I'm like, I'm going to go do it now, and then I'm going to know what I need to learn, and then tomorrow I'm going to go learn that thing. So universities, thought leaders, a lot of people put such an emphasis on learning and knowing, and got a degree, you got your master's, you got a PhD at Full Sail. I'm like, man, just go work on stuff. Go get around people who are doing it. So I'm a little bit anti-learning, because I think it really trips up people to think, oh, I'm not ready. I'll be ready in 2 years maybe, and then I'll do something, or I'll work on a project. And back in the 90s, I mean, when we first started doing music supervision and licensing, we messed up the first 7 of them. But you have to mess up the first 7 of them to get to know what the hell you're doing. So now we've got it kind of down to a science. But yeah, I mean, I think there's a tremendous power in breaking bread together, getting across from somebody and saying, hey, I want to hear about what you're doing. talk to me about what you're doing. Doing that a dozen times, 20 times, 30 times is get you your job. There's a friend of mine, Blair at BMI, and we would get together for Thai food a couple times a year, just buddies. We worked at Tower together back in the early '90s, and we'd get together and shoot the shit. So he's at BMI, and we weren't talking about work, whatever. We were just getting lunch at the Thai restaurant. And he's like, man, we get people calling every day who need help in X, Y, and Z, sync, supervision, clearance, licensing. And he's like, can I send them your way? And at first I was like, no, we're creative people. We're in the studio being the artsy fartsy people. And then I said, okay, yeah, send them our way. I don't know how we would help them, but I'll be glad to talk to them. And that was kind of the origin point for the Sync Center. It's like I just started listening to them. And it all kind of came out of just sitting down and breaking bread and not having an agenda, but being interested in people, checking up on them. People tend to be transactional rather than transformational. So I think the less you can be transactional and just say, hey, what's going on? I saw you're working on this, that's fantastic. The relationship part of it is everything, and they trust you, after you've done it, X amount of times for their clients, and they report back to BMI and say, hey, wow, the Sync Center was awesome. I got to talk to a human being for 10 minutes just to hear my problems and to hear about my film. It's like that goes a long way. And at ASCAP or CSAC, it's like, good luck trying to talk to a human being. It's just not going to happen. It's, nothing against ASCAP and CSAC. I mean, we have publishing companies at all the PROs, but, at the end of the day, people are humans. And the more you can treat them like humans rather than just cash registers, I think it's a good thing. I've never seen that kind of spam thing pay off.
Yeah.
Oh, I just dropped a new single. Check it out on SoundCloud. I mean, maybe that's worked somewhere, but we just don't work that way.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm just talking about how we work.
I completely agree. I've sent out cold samplers, and I don't have. That's just if someone wants to listen, they can click on it if they want, but I'm not expecting anything. But like the way I've always made headway is personalization, and I guess authenticity is
If you can sit down, buy somebody lunch.
Yep.
Every quarter, man, that's your strategy. Do it every month. I mean, and those relationships, they learn you. Like they know, okay, here's a guy I can trust or a girl I can trust. She knows how to show up. She knows how to communicate. Just basic stuff.
Yeah.
You can figure out the rest.
And
you can figure out how to send music around. You can figure out how to do a sync license. You can figure out how to do a deal memo. That ain't brain surgery, But it just gets forgotten. The relationship part of it. Everybody gets busy, and we forget it. I forget it. So it's good to, go check in with the head of Sony and say, hey man, haven't heard from you in 3 weeks. Let's grab a beer, or
That's perfect. Absolutely. If it helps, I was meeting. I went to I'm back in Virginia now, but I was living in California, and I was visiting last summer for our vacation. My wife and I took some time and went and went and had scotch with a music supervisor that I wanted to get to know. And I just said, hey, I'm visiting LA, and I'd love to take you out to this scotch bar. And he was down, and we met, and now he's bringing me in on his all his searches and briefs, and I share that story just because I feel like it's my responsibility to kind of share what's worked for me with
Yeah,
with our members, and
it's a
just
big
say,
deal. It's a big, and the thing is like Jesse, you may never work on a project with that supervisor, right? But at least he knows you're someone with a pulse. Like you're not just somebody trying to get in, spam
yeah,
them. You
yeah,
know,
and
it's just good good business that gets forgotten. Everything's digital, and we're in the future, and that's awesome. And there's tons of good stuff about technology and SaaS tools that really help people work. But at the end of the day, it's humans want to work with other people, you know, like them.
yeah. We're always saying, uh, when you're just making introductions with someone, be and Cameron and I, we love this. Be interested, not interesting. It's
Yeah,
kind of our motto. Is make um, that intro very personalized, and if they worked
yeah,
on a project that meant something to you, why did it mean something to you, and what did it get
yeah,
you what did it get you through growing up, or was it hard times, and I don't know, just there's all kinds of ways, going to people's websites and their LinkedIn pages, and really anywhere where they post
yeah.
about themselves. But yeah, completely agree with you on that. um, yeah. um, cool. So kind of, I want to get to some questions with Lexi here in a few minutes, but I got a couple more for you, John. Um,
Sure.
um, um, do I guess you probably get asked all the time. Is it a database where you rep your artists and store their music? Do you look to take on new artists, or work with new artists, or potentially collaborate with people for sync related matters? I think you've already answered some of that, but just because I know it's gonna, uh, I wanted to ask.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the technical part of that question is we use Dropbox and Spotify.
Okay.
Uh, we don't use anything fancy. Google Docs, Dropbox, Spotify. What else? I think that's it.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, when we sign a writer, we sign them like we do a lot of what we call re-recorder. I don't know if I guess we haven't talked about that, but we could talk about that if you want. So
Yeah.
so when if there's a writer we really like and we think we can work with, um, we're interested in signing them and working with them as either a publisher or a record label. We'll go one of those paths. But yeah, primarily we go to our group first, our catalog.
Mm-hmm.
That's why we have Jetpack Label Group and Jetpack Music Publishing, because it's kind of the publishing company we've been building over 20 years. Sometimes the music is in there that works.
Mm-hmm.
About half the time it's not. So we go outside to people we trust, allies, experts in specific genres, or we go to the majors. It all depends on the project. If we need to go to Sony and Universal, we go to Sony and Universal. We work with them every day. So it really, it's kind of there's a food chain of content. There's the bottom tier here and the mid tier and the top tier, Sony, Universal, and Warner's up here. These are the super hits. Then there's kind of mid-tier stuff that gets used, licensing professionals, maybe independent companies. And then there's just SoundCloud down here of just stuff that whatever. Aspirational music. I'll put that. I'll say that. So there's a place for all that music. It just depends on the project.
Mm-hmm.
You
Mm-hmm.
know. So there's a food chain to music, and I think you kind of have to know where you are.
Mm-hmm.
And as a supervisor, you have to navigate and be able to pull from up here when needed, pull from here, and pull from down market.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah. I mean, that's kind of how we think about. I don't know if that answered your question, Jesse, but that's how.
Yeah.
We have to go all places when we need to go to those places.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, yeah, just
And sometimes we just, I mean, if there's cost limitations, we do just kind of flipping back to re-recorder. We started this a couple of years ago when, say we get 5 requests a year for Ain't No Mountain High Enough. And we know that Ain't No Mountain High Enough is 175,000 and above. So we started going, hey, wouldn't it be interesting to do, let's do our own version of Ain't No Mountain High Enough and get it pretty damn close. Not going to get it perfect, obviously, but we can get it 92% of the way there, maybe on a good day. And then give the client an option. Say, we can get Marvin Gaye's version, or we can use ours for 30,000.
Yeah, absolutely.
Whatever, doesn't matter to us. We'll go either way, but it's just giving them options that they hadn't thought about.
Absolutely.
When they get the price back of 175,000, they're like, oh shit, we're not doing that, and they think it's done. Well, maybe not. I mean, there's other ways to save them money. So,
yep.
So yeah, I don't know if that answers your question, but that's how I heard your question.
Yeah, no, that was great, and I'm familiar with re-records and hey, we have a new master, we just got to clear the publishing, and you'll save a fortune as long as you can clear the publishing. Like if you look at, I believe it's Tom Petty. I don't believe he has ever allowed his music to be commercially licensed. And so that's the thing. If you do a Tom Petty cover, you probably will never clear the publishing, and therefore can't license your new master, your re-record, essentially. So I think I just wanted to mention that is that you know.
And there's ways. I mean, some artists, Beastie Boys, are similar. You can get around that as well too. I mean, you can do sound-alikes that feel like the Beastie Boys, same energy, same instrumentation, without encroaching on the copyright. I mean, there's ways. You just gotta think about. We call it solutionists. You got to be about the solution. What are the ways that we help this person win?
Yeah.
Because Tom Petty doesn't have a patent on Southern, rock in the late 70s, early 80s. I mean, that's practically a genre now. So, we could all kind of go and recreate that and license it. But again, it all goes back to the relationship.
Absolutely.
How are you trusted? How are you hired on to a project? That kind of stuff.
Okay. Yeah. What are a few of your bullet points for what are the mistakes that you see being made, and what doesn't get talked about enough, or what bears further repeating.
You mean broadly in the music space?
Yeah, in your space, because every person I talk to, every industry person has a different answer to this. But from where you're sitting, what things do you see that make you roll your eyes? And
there's. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot. There's a lot of people who, the gurus and the people who have come at it from a marketing place, the social media ninjas who kind of spam you left and right. That kind of makes me throw up in the back of my mouth because I know it's really marketing in disguise. They're not interested in getting their hands dirty with the artist. They just want to be their guru. So that's a big deal. There's also there's this thing called and this is part of the reason why we wrote Hacking Music. It's It's about taking the hacker's worldview and bringing it to bear on the creative artist entrepreneur. Artists have a lot of great things that they do. They are great at connecting with their audience. They're great at creating. They have a extrasensory ability to kind of intuit things, right? Artists are important, but they also have a lot of blind spots. So, you know, that was really the impetus for hacking music, is to create, let the artist be the artist, but give them some tools, some frameworks, some things that work every day for us that can help, kind of, it's like letting our hindsight be their foresight, I would say. There's also a lot of misinformation in the music space. I would say there's not really a music industry anymore. There is a music marketplace. So that brings with it helping people solve problems. There's a lot of mythology in the music industry of like, oh, I'm just going to get my resume together and I'm going to get a job at Universal. And it's like, yeah, you can go do that, but you're going to be the person number 239 in that line for that job. So we really tend to think of it as a marketplace where you help people solve problems. That's a big deal. Solving a real problem. So when a filmmaker comes to us, we're kind of like a plumber. Lexi and I were joking about it the other day, but they're probably at the end of their film and they're going, oh shit, we got to handle the music. We've got, 5 songs in this film. We need scoring here, and here. We are a lot like a plumber. They're like, oh, my toilet's overflowing and I need someone to help me right now on the project. So that's how we solve a problem at the Sync Center. I'm also a huge believer of team over talent. People tend to really bring talent up here, and it's just talent, and there's no team around them. And that's like the worst place in the world you can be. I will take a team that can execute together with lesser talent every day of the week, because I know they can work together and figure things out. So team over talent's a huge thing. Decision making's a huge thing. I believe in this thing called everything has a destination. So what you do today has a ripple effect, the destination of next month, next year, 2 years from now. So the decisions you make today really affect who you're going to be next year and next quarter, big time. And those are just blind spots that artists don't think about. They don't think about e-commerce, or they don't think about operations or any of those things. So those are blind spots to artists that really keep them operating at a low level. And we go deep into these in the hacking music training.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll make sure.
Yeah, those are. And there's another thing called leaders and feeders, where feeders are like lawyers, service providers. They go to networking events and they do the spammy card. Here's my card, call me. Those are feeders.
Mm-hmm.
Leaders. Sorry, I had a call come in there. Leaders are the people that have skin in the game. They're willing to do the work with you and get in the trenches with you and take bullets with you. Those are the people you want on your team. The people that can help you take the hill. Mm-hmm. It's a big dichotomy. There's a shit ton of feeders. 200 of them. You probably see them as well. But the leaders who have skin in the game and who have their hands dirty and who aren't afraid to put on their work boots, those are the people that I love to be around, because I know they have that DNA of showing up and moving the ball and, winning together. You can only win as a team. Like, talent shows up at Starbucks pouring coffee for people. I hate to say it, but I mean, in Nashville, there's baristas who are way more talented than any of us will ever be. And unfortunately, their blind spots have kind of enveloped them. They never dealt with their blind spots, and they're just focused on their talent alone. So team, I love team. I love talking about teams. I love putting teams together. I love seeing teams win.
I love it. I love it. That's fantastic. That's
I hope that helps. I mean,
it does.
some of it's
It's good to hear. It's there's a lot of music supervisors out there that do a lot of interviews, and some of them talk about teams, but I think teams needs to be talked about more. I think it needs to be talked about a lot more. I like what you said about talent. There's an expression: "You didn't get there alone." Um, if you're
yeah,
trying to go somewhere and be um, something extraordinary,
yeah,
you didn't get there alone. It takes a village.
100%. Yeah,
So
yeah, and you only accomplish things together,
yeah,
right? What you do alone is like minuscule. You can only do
yeah,
a couple things on your own, but when you put four people together who can take a hill together, that's when things get fun and exciting.
I have just one other question for you, and then I wanted to open up
Yeah,
for some questions, and then I wanted
yeah,
to talk with Lexi. Can you give me an idea of? I know we got started a little bit late. Can we keep going for a bit, or what are your
yeah, yeah.
times?
I'm good. I've got about another 20 minutes.
Perfect. Yeah. And how about you, Lexi? How long can you go?
Oh, there we go. I have about like 30-ish,
Okay.
35 minutes.
Well,
So you're good for
cool.
me.
Let's shift in here in just a few minutes to Lexi. But first, kind of wanted to wrap up with you, John, and then if anyone has any questions,
Yeah,
kind of two questions in one. Um,
yeah.
you toured the world. You lived in a bus and got it out of your system. What did you learn, or
Yeah.
what did you learn about mental health? And what are your recommendations for artists who may consider that style of path for themselves?
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a great question. And I think, you know, so I toured for a couple years back after I went to Belmont University and got an opportunity to go to Europe for 2 months. And I missed graduation because I was in Switzerland. Um, and it taught me a lot. I mean, all I wanted to do, this was 94, and all I wanted to do was buy a hard drive. And I was like, oh, because hard drives were really expensive back then. So I was like, I'm going to do this tour, and I'm going to save up $1,900 to buy a hard drive. Pro Tools had just come out, and so I went and did that tour, and I thought, okay, if I could buy a hard drive, then I could produce music, right? So that's kind of what I learned there, and I learned too. It's okay to get bored. Like I was only being productive like 2 hours a night, and I was sitting around for 8 hours a day, which in Europe isn't bad, but I wanted to be productive 8 hours a day more. And this kind of goes back to the Dino De Laurentiis. It's like that guy produced 500 movies. I want to be more like that and less like the stoner bass player on the tour, right? Who was just doing stoner bass player stuff. So it's okay to get bored. I mean, I got bored doing that, and it kind of led me into the next chapter, if you will, of producing music. And some of my friends still tour. You can do that. I have nothing against touring musicians, but I just got bored quickly. I've got friends who still go out and play state fairs with Ronnie Millsap. Good, great, go do. But that gets boring for me. You know, I don't know if that answers your question, but it's a great way to get started. But I think it's okay to get bored. Like when you've been there, done that, bought the T-shirt, it's okay to ask yourself, okay, do I want to be doing this 10 years from now?
Yeah. Yeah.
Jumping on a tour bus at Kroger at midnight to go play a show somewhere. It's
Yeah.
like, maybe you do, and that's awesome. Then go do that. But I just got bored easily with that, and I felt like I wasn't using all of what I could do.
No, I think that's helpful. Right.
You know, I could play guitar and go do tours, and that's fine. But I wanted to use more of the what I thought I could do.
Got it. No, I think that's a great answer. I think give real thought to what you want to do, how sustainable it is, and
Yeah.
I think that's a great answer. I think that's maybe a road less traveled.
Look, it's fun when you're 20 years old. It's a paid vacation. Go see the world. Go tour. Go do that. But just be careful what you get used to. I'll say that.
I love it.
A lot of people get used to that, and they're like, it's not a good place to be when you're of a certain age. It's fun when you're 20.
No, I think that's a great answer. Thank you. Want to open it up for a few minutes for questions, and then I want an opportunity and to speak with kind of Lexi and kind of your approach. So, who's got questions? All right. Anyone? All right. No, that works for me. No questions. Okay. Lexi, why don't you talk to us? Let me pull up. I got my questions here. Got my little cheat sheet. Um, talk to me about how you came on board with, as a sync associate with the Sync Center. I'd like to know more about the help desk and what that entails. I mean, I've been looking at the Instagram, but I'd still like to kind of hear from your perspective, your vision for help desk and what your goals are there. We'll take it from there.
Yeah, okay. So y'all can hear me right? You hear me good right now? Awesome. So yeah, let's see where to begin. Well, when it comes to my role as a sync associate, you asked like how I even got here. It's actually a really funny story. I was looking into anything I could get my hands on, music supervisory, like podcasts, books, and this is like during like peak COVID era, so like there are all these like panels popping up all over the place, and like I did a couple internships here and there, so I was kind of just in that, like what John was talking about earlier, that like learning, like just grabbing all the knowledge I possibly could. But I was slowly realizing like, okay, like I'm learning, but I'm not doing like anything. I want to be doing now. Like I've captured as much like as I can grasp, just by picking up from things from different, arenas of thought, and I really just want to be able to execute on some of these things now. And I didn't really feel as though I was in a place to be able to just like work on projects like off the gate. I'm like, no, I need guidance. So like I said, during this like look for knowledge search that I was on, I came across the Sync Center music supervision licensing and clearance podcast on Spotify, and it was literally just John talking and him going into various, topics involving this overarching topic that I was very interested in. And I think at the time there were maybe like 5 or 6 episodes, or if not more, and I listened to them all like back to back to back to back. I was just like, and because the entire time he's talking, he's going over some things that at this point, with all the knowledge that I've gained, I know some of the things that he's talking about, but he's also explaining it in a way that I felt like, oh my gosh, like we're the same, like we think the same. I felt like, wow, like what, even how he's explaining it is exactly how I would regurgitate it if someone I would ask me. So I felt like at that moment I'm like, all right, I need to meet this guy. Like clearly, like we're vibing without him even knowing. So I need to know who he is. So I reached out. I kind of did some digging, found the website, and sent a message just letting them know, hey, I really enjoyed your podcast. I want to get into this music supervision space, but I would like to be able to help you out if I can. Whatever needs to be done. I'm your girl. Like, let me. What can we work out here? And that pretty much just kind of led us into building that relationship with each other to be able to grow my skills in both how the company runs and how things are organized, but also in how we work well together and figuring out that bit. So that is kind of how I got here. I basically just reached out and saw an opportunity that could be really good for me, but also could be really cool for John to, like, I don't know, pass
Yeah.
off some wisdom or something. So that was kind of where I came from and how I got here. And then from there on out, once we started working together and realizing our strengths and weaknesses, both working together, but also like in the system that we had going on, um, I kind of introduced a lot of the social media stuff, and which I only gained any of my social media knowledge from my own socials and growing my like indie artists Instagram, which was just me, because for me, I am an artist. I have that whole side of me in terms of creativity and producing and writing and collaborating with other artists and all that stuff. But for me, it was a lot less about growing my music and making myself like rich and famous or anything like that. It was more so a way for me to better learn and understand the industry and how it works, so that I would be better prepared to potentially work with artists from the supervision side to understand where they're coming from, or to understand, if someone sends out a song that they want to potentially pitch, and I'm thinking, no, that's not what we need, or I can give those like specific, or even when it comes to working with like filmmakers, I can give like specific um, background and specific advice as to the musicality part of it, because I have that musical creative background within myself. So yeah, it really just kind of worked out. And with the social media aspect, like I said, I grew my own stuff. I mean, granted, I don't have like a million followers on Instagram or anything like that, but I did have zero, and now I don't. So I think I'm almost at like 750. I think so. I mean, it's not like awesome, but it's not awful either. You know what I mean? And I felt like I built that from the ground up. So if I did that, then I can learn how to do that for something bigger, even bigger than myself, which in this case has been the Sync Center and the Sync Center's like socials, and just building the relationships, not only offline over like LinkedIn and stuff, but online over other socials like Instagram and YouTube
And
and all that stuff.
I,
So
Lexi, just adding to that, I would say too
please
that
do.
the help desk is like when we first started talking, I was like, okay, we get the same calls every week. People asking the same questions. What can we do to open source these questions to where, look, I don't have time to answer the same questions every week. How can we put this out there in a way? And I said, I don't know what to call it. I think we came up with a silly name
You
before.
had like, yeah, it was something. It was something silly, and I was like,
and I said, look, what can we call this? I mean, so Lexi came up with the help desk, and I was like, that's exactly right.
Yep.
That's what it is. I mean, all we're doing is taking those questions we get over and over from the filmmakers and saying, look, let's answer them on YouTube, and maybe people will just go there and listen to them there. It's partially selfish, I want to offload that, but Lexi's done a fantastic job, and I think the conversations we've had have been really open and transparent. It's like, Lexi knows a good bit of what we're talking about, but she's also learning. So that back and forth conversation of like Lexi asking questions and clarifying is kind of the voice of the customer, because they would asked to clarify that as well. So we try not to use, semantics or hyperbole or fancy words. We really just try to wrestle it down to earth in a simple way of, this is how these questions are what filmmakers need to know.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's a really good point because with the help desk specifically, it really just was a way for me, like you said, to learn, but also as we started to, make more episodes and share them out to more places, I started getting people reaching out to me saying, hey, like that was actually really helpful. Like because also one of the biggest things that I felt was a difficulty for me when learning was there were so many resources out there for like how to get your music heard by a music supervisor, or how to reach out to music libraries and stuff like that. Whereas I'm like, no, I don't want to get my music heard. I want to be the person listening,
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I felt like having something specific to, I mean, and we talk about all sorts of things, involving the process of getting your music synced in general. But, having something that was like specific to that perspective, I thought was really, really beneficial. And the fact that I was then essentially being the resource that I felt like I needed.
Yeah.
Was really cool because I was getting a lot of feedback from people simply saying, this is really great. Like I didn't know that, or thank you for being so transparent about how everything works. And for me, it was just a way to learn in front of a camera, pretty much.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. And I think tying into that, Lexi, it's like like you said, there's a ton of stuff about pitching your music. Pitch, 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 do metadata. It's like our approach is top down. Like we're on the buy side, not the sell side. So, it's a very different approach for us. We're not pitching. We're not a plugger trying to get our songs used in other people's stuff. We're managing projects. So it's like, I learned this back at Sony. It's like I'm really bad at hitting a moving target, but I'm really good at owning the target and hitting that target once we you know what I mean? Like when we manage the target, we can hit the target. But it's hard. It's really hard to hit a moving target. So when we manage a project, we're deciding what gets used on that project. So we're on the buy side rather than the sell side.
Absolutely. Do you have a platform? Which social media platforms are you using? Do you have a preference, and like why? Are there certain advantages to one over the other with the work that you've been doing, Lexi?
So we typically stick between Instagram, LinkedIn, and Facebook. Um, I I would say personally, I like Instagram a lot, mainly because I spent a lot of time learning that platform and learning that algorithm, and it's constantly changing as social media does. It constantly changes. You always have to be creative in how you're getting your message out there and whatnot. And I feel like also there's a lot of room for growth on all the platforms, honestly, but when it comes to really getting your message to people who may not have seen it otherwise but are still interested and still want to know, like Instagram is a great place for that. But there's definitely a space for Facebook and there's a space for LinkedIn because there's different demographics on both of those platforms typically. I have a sociology degree, which is like so random in this like space, but it definitely comes in handy with understanding um, the different, like I said, the different demographics that you have on different platforms, but also understanding like their motivations for things and why they may click a certain thing or why they may look into. So, like when it comes to things like thumbnails or coming up with titles for stuff, even like John mentioned the help desk thing. I came up with that. I can't remember what John had originally, but for me, it just became a matter of, all right, I know what the goal of this whole ordeal is. It's to help people and it's to get to get answers in front of people before they even ask the question.
Yes.
And all I thought was, you know, if you were calling the sync center, or if you're calling anywhere and you have questions, they're going to send you to the help center or like the call center.
Right.
And that just kind of like transformed itself into this whole help desk idea, because I'm just thinking like that's the whole point. We want to help people. And so being able to kind of like translate all those different ideas into this one focused idea of helping each other and building relationships through that help, because there's, like I said, there's so many people who have reached out to me just expressing their gratitude for the help desk's existence, which I thought was very mind-blowing. I did not expect I didn't expect it to be a flop or anything like that, but I definitely didn't expect it to
it's a
be,
niche.
I guess, as helpful. Yeah. I definitely like reached it. It was really cool to like hear that it was actually like doing some good for some people, you know? So that was definitely, and Instagram definitely helped a lot with that.
And Lexi, I think to that point too, in just offering those conversations up, you know, now Lexi's able to like jump in on client calls and have be in the room where we're talking to clients, you know, talking about their film, how we work, how they work, how we can help them. And so it's a way for Lexi to kind of onboard Lexi and to get her involved in projects more deeply, you know, because it's like the last thing we want to do is have somebody in the room say something stupid, you know. So I know Lexi's not going to be that person, right? She can ask smart questions and, you know, listen when she needs to listen and talk when it's appropriate, you know. And she's great in those environments as well. So now I get to check that other box, like, okay, Lexi's good with clients. You know, she's not a know-it-all. She doesn't have to know it all, but you know, as she rises through the ranks, it's like I can trust her more, and I can, you know, put her with a client and know that she's good in that situation.
That was my
it definitely like opened up a lot of things for me in terms of like knowing what I could and couldn't do, and then knowing what questions to ask on what I couldn't do, you know. Before I didn't have that. Before it was just a matter of like me just, like I said, gathering information as much as I could without actually knowing, you know, okay, what am I even good at? Like I know it thematically and like theoretically, but in terms of the actual execution, you know, the help desk really helped out with that.
Yeah, and I think, you know, talking about learning and doing, it's like Lexi doesn't need to learn more. We just need to get her doing more, you know. And she's up at the plate, swinging, hitting them out of the park every, you know, chance we get. So I love it.
Thanks. That's awesome. That was my next question was about a broader look at your purview, you know, as a sync associate, and really understanding what that is. So I love it. I love that we you know, you're doing some heavy lifting, and you know, sync associate, sync coordinator. You know, that's good to know. Appreciate that.
So we want to, you know, soon Lexi will be managing her own projects within the sync center. You know, it's like it just takes a while to learn everything, you know, and Lexi, like I said, Lexi's learned a lot, and now she's, you know, ready to move up.
That's fantastic. Stoked to hear that. That's awesome. I was curious, Lexi, if you kind of how you got interested in sync, and if your experience with public television in the women's audio mission played a part in that.
Okay. So first off, Jesse, I love this question. This is dope. So I actually I knew I wanted to work in music supervision long before any of those experiences. So I'm a big Grey's Anatomy fan. Not caught up though. Don't spoil things for me, please and thank you. Um, but at one point when I was caught up, it was during an off season, and I just felt like I really, really like I want to watch Grey's, but there's no like episodes. I don't want to rewatch things. I was just like fiending for some Grey's content, pretty much. And so what I wound up doing was um, I went on demand and I found a like on demand special of it was specifically talking about the music of Grey's Anatomy, which I'm not sure if y'all are familiar, but Grey's Anatomy, it helped like launch a lot of smaller artists' careers when it first came out, and also just the music itself is just phenomenal. Like great, great choices all around. And so in this special, it actually was they featured this supervisor at the time, Alexandra Patsavas,
Yep.
and
Yep.
that at that moment when I realized, like, wait, there's a person like behind all of this. Like she's the person I go to learn, and like it just kind of like it was a completely mind-blowing experience of just like, wow, there's a person doing this, and not only is this person doing this, that's something that I could do, because that's all I'm always the person, any movie I would see, any show I would watch, I would always like take note of the music by opening credit line, simply because there was probably a song playing at that time, and I would think to myself, thank you, Matt, or like, thank you, John, just because it's probably in your hands as the fact that I'm hearing a song right now, things like that. So that to me was always a really, really cool experience. And like I said, when I found out that it was something that I could pursue, that just like changed the game for me. And at this point, I already had my like sociology degree. I already was done school. I was already like working in a consulting firm. Like at this point, I was like, but you know what? I want to do this. And so I had no idea how. I had no idea when. But I figured, I'm gonna do it. I'll figure something out. No worries, Todd. Thank you so much for being here. Have a great weekend. Enjoy your gig. Break a leg. But yeah, so that kind of led me to, at that point, just determining, okay, I know what I want to do now. How do I do it? Like, let's figure that out. And that is actually what led me down the road of the various internships. So the working in Maryland Public Television, and my internship with Women's Audio Mission, and I interned at a radio station as well for a little bit. Like I was just getting whatever I could get into, to even begin to have some sort of credentials, so to speak, because I felt like, yes, I knew I wanted to work in this space, but I knew, transitioning from a sociology degree to try and apply to music industry jobs was probably not the move. So I felt like, this is a great way for me to kind of lean in without diving in so deep because I don't have any, way to fall back on. I don't know what I'm doing. I want to be able to, like I said, have guidance and really understand the needs of the industry and things like that. And that also is kind of where production happened for me. That was always something that I was interested in, but was too unaware of the possibility, I guess, within myself. And so that's when I started learning production and did a certificate in that to help. And everything, like I said, just kind of fell into place. One thing led to the next thing, led to the next thing, which all kind of prompted me to end up here. So, yeah.
Thank you. That was awesome. That was. I love hearing about your background and things, how it came together for you. And you're absolutely right about Grey's Anatomy and Alex Patsavis, and God, she's running her own department at Netflix now, and she's notoriously difficult to get a hold of. But yeah, um, yeah. I just want to thank you, for sharing that. I guess
Sure.
what I want to know is, you know, we're here to be helpful. What are your goals? And um, I, if there's a way I can ever help you, then I would certainly want to do that. But just kind of want to see if there's anything I can do to be, or that we can do to be helpful um, to you, and just kind of be engaging in what you have going on, and of course share the Sync Center's site and hacking music and the help desk, and want to share all those links with folks so they know kind of your running point, and have those resources for our members. And but yeah, just wanted to express like gratitude and say, hey, if there's anything we can do to be helpful, we're of course here to do so.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you so much for that. To John's point earlier, building relationships is very, very important. Like, I always knew it was important, and for me, I'm a people person. I like meeting people, so that wasn't necessarily a super difficult thing for me to kind of step into that role. But I will definitely keep that in mind, and absolutely will totally be sharing y'all's information as well.
Yeah.
And I really appreciate you taking the time to speak with us and have us on. This has been really cool.
Yeah, we're gonna we'll post this as kind of what we're doing right now is kind of our podcast. We're just kind of getting that started, but we will be switching, as I mentioned at the beginning of the meeting. We will likely be switching to Zoom to make this process more efficient. As I said to you, Lexi, earlier, but John wasn't in yet. We wanted to give Facebook video sessions a shot, but I think Zoom is going to be more efficient and just easier to use, and keep it simple. But wanted to see if anyone has any questions before we kind of sign off for the day.
No question is dumb.
What's up, Sourcey?
What's up?
Hi. Well, Lexi, thank you for sharing like your journey. I absolutely love just everything about that, and I was wondering like, what's your favorite way to like receive music? How do you come upon it? What's your favorite way to find music? What's the most exciting and inspiring way that you kind of find music and think this is what I might want for this project? Like, what's your favorite way to discover that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, dude, that's a great question. So today is Friday, as I'm sure y'all know at this point. New music comes out today. I really like, and let me just also preface this. I listen to everything. I don't really have. I listen to a lot of indie and like indie pop and soul and retro soul, but I know that it's not beneficial for me to simply listen to music that I like, especially in this realm. I need to, branch out. So I definitely listen to whatever I can get my hands on, whatever people send me. But in terms of my favorite way to find music, I like listen. So a lot of times, I will have a song in mind that I want to hear, and then Spotify. I'm pretty sure it's on Apple Music too. I'm not as well versed on Apple Music, but you can do like a radio of that specific song. And so that way I can kind of discover music, but also be an active listener because it's already something that I am potentially interested in because it's based off of that particular song that I was already, looking into or listening to. But in terms of music that people want to send to me, I don't necessarily have a preferred method. I like disco links, but I'm not anti to other ones. I understand John's point about SoundCloud. I definitely do. There are some gems on there, but I think if you really want to like capture my attention, disco is definitely the way to go. Or even Spotify, because a lot of times Spotify has like other contact information on there. You can link your. I love when people link their like socials to their Spotify accounts, and they have a bio in their Spotify account because I read those. Like artists that I find, I love finding out where they're from or being able to see who else they follow on Instagram if we know any similar people, so like that's really cool for me. I really like being able to. I don't necessarily want to just know about the song that I'm listening to. I want to know about the person behind it. So
Yeah.
if you are someone who you have your Instagram linked to your Spotify, but you have like 2 pictures and like 4,000 followers, I don't really care that you have 4,000 followers. I want to know you. And if you have
Right.
2 pictures and they're like the clouds and a windowsill, then yeah. So yeah. To answer your question though, yeah, I really like finding new music for myself in terms of like getting the videos of specific songs. And then I can find, artists who are similar or whatever the case is. And then when it comes to music being sent to me, disco links are cool, Spotify links are cool, or even playlists. Playlist links are cool too.
How about
If there's
Do you usually, is that usually through email, or is that something you feel comfortable sharing?
I'm sorry, what was that?
Is that you usually like to use email? Is that something you're comfortable sharing? I know it's tricky with contact
Yeah.
information. I know that.
Oh yeah, dude, I got you. So let me. I will casually show you my profile picture while I get up my LinkedIn. I'm pretty privy to there, or Instagram. You can reach out to me either place. My Instagram, I believe, is linked on. I'm tagged in at least one post on our Sig Center Instagram. So you can totally find me there, and it's just my. I use my Instagram for everything. So it's my. You'll find me singing. You'll find me producing. You'll find me talking about music. You'll find me sharing music. All that stuff is there. But let me grab my LinkedIn for you so you can look there too. I don't have a preference on how you reach out to me. I would give you my email, but I'm not. I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm not the best with my email correspondence for my personal stuff. So I want you to be able to actually reach me. So
Yeah, we can share that with Jesse, and he can circulate it after.
no problem?
yeah.
And tying into that, I would maybe think about that, because you talk about discovering music, and it's like, I know for me, I don't discover music. I discover people who create music, and like people are experts in a certain thing. So when I like an ally of ours who we work with, he's an expert in Brazilian music, and he has a catalog of Brazilian music, and we were looking for music from the 40s from Brazil.
Wow.
Really needle in a haystack kind of stuff. So I discover people who know a lot about a thing, whether it's Brazilian music or metal or whatever it is. It's like people lead me to music. I don't discover music just random, in the interwebs. It's too much. But when I know somebody who like really understands, okay, Tejano music, I'm an expert in Tejano. Okay, great. Then you're on my list for Tejano music, because I don't know anything about that, but you do, and I can go to you. Does that make sense? So
Yeah,
I would,
absolutely. It's more
because
about
I
just
want to know
different.
you. I don't want to know, like, you're a curator. You have instincts and DNA to create a certain thing, a genre, a subgenre, whatever it is. So it's like, if I know you and I trust you, then you can point me to what you're an expert in. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Good food for thought, and you know, I wanted to mention to Sorcy, I don't ever want to hinder an artist's ability to reach out directly to a guest, provided that that is appropriate and permissible with that guest. But I'm of course here to be a conduit. If it's a time management thing, sometimes it is easier to just, hey, send me your link for your box.com or your disco link, and I'll forward it on. Either way works. It just sometimes it's easier to have one focal point or one method of communication, but sometimes the more the merrier. So I don't want to stifle. I just want to, I'm here to help, and whatever works for Lexi and John is what works for us.
Yeah, we can share that with you, and you can circulate it to the group.
Yeah, no
Yeah,
problem.
reach out anytime.
No problem at all. Just I like to be very clear on what's what works for someone else. Um, but I love questions and of course how do we get our music to you is a big one. So yeah, just want to say thank you to John, of course to Lexi as well for being here and taking time out of your day. And it's we always say time is the one thing you can't get back. um, so I put a big
Yeah,
premium on people who take time to share some knowledge, share some wisdom.
yeah.
You know,
Thanks for inviting us on, Jesse, and
yeah,
any of your group members, if they want to, feel free to reach out anytime.
sure.
We'll
I
send you our
appreciate
contact
that.
info.
It's very nice of you, and thanks for running a little extra with us here today. Appreciate that.
You bet.
And I know you said your afternoons get busy, so we'll let you get going.
Awesome, guys. Thanks so much, Jesse. Good
Thank you,
conversation.
thank you very much, and to you as well, Lexi.
Nice
Um,
to meet you.